Finance meeting to order. Welcome everybody. Good to see so many faces. Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our topics for discussion. We have two of them today. We're going to start with the OIC program update. Rebecca, do you want to kick us off here, or however you want to do this?
Everybody sort of has been a part of putting PowerPoint together, and I just would like to let everybody who's come in support that if at any time you have something to add, please interject. But we'll just go through the PowerPoint as it is. And Judge Brubaker is here practically on her deathbed, so please be gentle with her.
I'm really sick today.
She's very, very sick, and only came in because of how important this is. We wanted to update you now that it's been approximately 7 months since we implemented the opioid intervention court on what we feel are very promising and actually profound impacts that it has had on our community, and also as a bonus on the criminal justice system as well. So, is this the button? Okay. So just as a brief overview of why we felt compelled to move forward with this project when we were approached by AOPC. At that time, COOP was actually engaged very much in the community and what was going on. And in 2016, 13 Pennsylvanians were dying daily due to opioids. This epidemic is the leading cause of death for people under age 50. And between 2015 and 2016, most counties in Pennsylvania saw a 37% increase in deaths related to drug poisoning. In Cumberland County, however, we saw a 61% increase in fatalities in the same time period. The opioid epidemic has had an impact on our criminal justice system. Between 2011 and 2015, there was a 200% increase in the number of inmates placed on a medical detox from opiates upon their commitment to CCP. And Sentinel identified individuals with recent criminal charges made up nearly 60% of all the overdose deaths in the county in 2015. These same individuals were 110 times more likely to die of an overdose that year than those without recent charges. And that ties into the opioid intervention court because we intervene at the point of arrest. Cumberland County also experienced a 25% increase in criminal dockets filed, mostly felt to be tied to drug abuse and drug-related property crime in 2015 and 2017, an additional almost 1,000 cases. And during that time, the average daily population at the Cumberland County Prison had increased from 400 to 460. This is the current state of the opiate overdose death data for Cumberland County, a comparison of then to now. And in 2017, there were 76 opiate-related overdose deaths. 36%, or 27 of those persons that died, had been involved with the criminal justice system. 14 of those people died within 3 months of arrest, 8 within 1 month of arrest, prior to their preliminary hearing, and 1 died 1 week after their arrest. We began the opioid intervention court on February 26th of 2018, and as of August 30th, there have been 34 opioid-related overdose deaths in Cumberland County. So that's approximately a 40% reduction in overdose deaths, and only 8 or 24% of the 4 deaths had a criminal justice involvement. So when we went into this, our primary goal...
If I could just interject, in my conversations with our coroner, Charlie Hall, the numbers increased a little bit since August 30, but it's still a 40% reduction to where we were last time, or this time last year. So that trend seems to be holding to date, which I think is a positive sign.
Thank you. So our primary goal was to reduce the opiate overdose deaths. You can see that in OIC we have had no overdoses, number in the county again, 34, and criminal justice involved, 24%. We tried to gather as much information as we could about the use of naloxone, but only the police report those numbers, so we did a little digging. But at July 12th, the police had reported 29 naloxone administrations. That was down significantly from 2017. There was 117 total that year. They had reached 29 naloxone administrations in April of 2017, which is where we were at in July. The two largest EMS providers also reported significant decreases in naloxone this year. So our analysis of this brings us to believe that no one who overdosed in 2018 would have likely been screened for OIC given our current screening procedures. And looking back at the 2017 data, had we had OIC then, up to 16 people may have likely been screened and entered, and potentially 16 deaths prevented, which would have reduced those numbers down to 60 instead of the 76 people that we did lose. At the rate we are going, we can expect 16 more overdose deaths in 2018, bringing the total to 48, or a 37% reduction from 2017. And I just wanted to highlight that this is not the trend in counties directly next to us. This was an article on Fox 43 regarding Dauphin County. With 4 months left in the year, Coroner Grant Hetrick believes the total will surpass 2017's 105 overdose deaths. And this statement, I feel to be true. It's taxing so many systems that we have, hospital systems, families, counseling systems, and it's a brutal problem that we really have to work at. Also, the York Daily Record from June 4th, their overdose deaths are rising as well, about 15 more compared to the same point last year. So as far as the OIC's operations, we have, as of October 2nd, 63 people entered into OIC. We've screened over 130 defendants. We currently have 4 inmates pending entry from the jail. We denied 11 defendants as being ineligible due to the nature of their charges or some other criteria not being discovered to actually be involved with opiates upon their making application. And 52 defendants actually declined participation in the program. So some of the things we feel are additional positive impacts over and above the reduction of the overdose deaths. We do not require people to work because they're so early in their recovery while they're in this program. But in spite of that, what we've seen is as people have stabilized, they have been able to either maintain their employment, 50% that entered OIC maintained employment, and 52% of OIC entrants gained employment while in the program. The majority of that, 52%, were full-time jobs. And those that are currently unemployed are either very early in the program, retired, or disabled.
And I want to add, I've had several members of the community. I gave a presentation for the Rotary and the Chamber of Commerce about this issue, and I've had several members of the community talk to me, and they want to come in and meet with us and see how they can employ some of our participants. So there's positive feedback from business people in the community.
Another thing we'd like to point out is how many of our participants are parents. Over 64 children combined out of the 63. Only about half of them actually are parents, so multiple parents to participants. 2 participants had babies born while they were in the program, 2 fathers. 1 participant was actively working to regain custody during his participation, and that person was continued on in the treatment court, and hopefully that will be realized for him. And 6 participants had been involved with CYS right before they came into the program. I think they were on drug testing for CYS. So something that is an additional benefit of not having people in jail, but being in the community receiving treatment and services. 60% of all of our participants entered from the jail, and on average, each of those participants represented about 72 incarceration days that were saved. Comes out to about 2,428 bed days. So a real cost savings of $9,327 for all the meals that they were not served in jail, and a bed days cost diversion of about $153,000. And I'd like to point out some facts about the jail utilization that have occurred since we put this program in place. As you know, the jail is the largest cost driver in the county's budget, and the focus of many of our efforts are to reduce and manage the jail population. And although the primary goal was to reduce the overdose deaths, this program actually also has fulfilled that effort. In February of 2018, the jail's average daily population reached its peak of 487 inmates. Following the implementation of the opioid intervention court, the average daily population has gone down to 384 at the end of September. In March of this year, the commissioners were having to face the decision of whether to open the final remaining housing units at the jail. The cost of opening up those units is over $268,000 as a base cost in just the first year. In 2017 through September, there were 2,750 commitments and 2,727 releases. So last year we admitted more people than we let go. This year there have been about the same amount of commitments, slightly higher, but almost 100 more releases than last year. And I think that you can directly tie that to the people that we've released from jail into this program. So the cost of the opioid intervention court. This program is supported by 5 county employees, and their salary and benefits come to $291,275. That includes drug and alcohol case manager at the jail, an attorney for the district attorney's office and a public defender, and 2 restorative sanctions assistants that monitor their electronic monitoring and drug testing in the community. So the total cost of the supplies over the course of this year were approximately $50,000. That covered contract for electronic monitoring, the drug testing supplies, re-entry supports for people, additional costs for the drug testing system that's automated. And the total cost of the raise recovery contract is $150,000, and that supports 3 recovery specialists. So the total cost of the program is approximately $491,275. And the picture for 2019, the AOPC has officially awarded us $50,000 for the supplies and operating expenses. RAISE project has applied for a $150,000 grant through PCCD, which would run all of 2019. And the state has not released details on funding opportunities related to the SOAR federal money awarded to Pennsylvania, which is about $55 million. Judge Brubaker, you are making a presentation?
Yeah, I'm speaking to the governor's opioid command center on November 5th, and the people in charge of that money.
Judge Brubaker, the state opioid response money, the federal money being awarded. The fact that how many OICs are there in the state?
I think the second one may have started.
Okay, you think it would give us an advantage to get some of these?
That's
Sounds
part
like
of-
an elementary question.
That's part of what I'm hoping to ask them about. I actually spoke to Secretary something. And they have a lot of titles, yes, so that's really good. And she's on this and she said that we will talk about that. So it was a hopeful conversation.
And to be fair to the other counties, many of them have drug courts. They're trying to grapple with it, but this is a different tool, a different piece that needs to be treated earlier than the drug courts and treatment courts can do that. So I think we'll probably come on board as they see success here, and hopefully there'll be success in Montgomery.
Yeah, it struck me in the article with the Oregon Daily Record that the coroner seemed almost despondent that we were going to have to wait another generation. But I think that actually this effort shows that we can do things, that there are things that can be done, and it just takes a lot of focus and energy, but we're seeing results.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say I'm thankful for everybody that's been involved in this, and I'm very impressed, especially Your Honor, the way you work this. There's no question that we're making a difference. At least it appears that way so far. When you look at the city of Harrisburg, there was an article that you did not include, but there was an article in the Patriot News not that long ago, maybe a month or so ago. Their death rate from drugs just within the city, 12-mile radius, and they only have 40,000 or 45,000 population, has just spiked to almost to the point where I think they have as many deaths in the city of Harrisburg than we do countywide, with 500 square miles and 250,000 citizens. So I think we're doing something right here, and it could be, I think, a model for the state and for other counties. So I'm supportive of continuing this effort. We came this close in Earl, remember, to opening up another cell block at the prison, which would have required hiring 10 additional corrections officers and an ongoing annual cost. So this diversion from the time they're waiting trial until the final sentencing into treatment, I think it looks like that's what's working in terms of keeping, first of all, people alive, and then also helping us to also save some costs here in terms of what it would otherwise be. But yeah, so it's I commend you folks for everything you're doing on this. Now, it would be nice if we could continue to receive some state funding support for this.
Yeah, we had a conference call, and I, as tactfully as I could, and you know how tactful I can be, let the AOPC folks know that we really weren't happy with the $50,000. Not that we wouldn't take it, but that we expected them to be more supportive of this effort, and hopefully they will be down the road. So we're going to have a conference at in November at State College, and we'll be working that hard up there. If I can, one little anecdote. Judge Brubaker was really not doing well this morning. So, she has like 105-degree temperature. She doesn't want to be in opioid intervention court because she doesn't want to infect anybody, but she's here. I'm just saying. Well,
should I say thank
But that's really not my main point. Is one of the individuals in court. This was her last appearance, and I've seen her off and on as I have subbed and visited, and she's doing well. She's gone from working at Burger King, she's working at a warehouse, she's also a forklift driver at a warehouse, so she's, productive, and that kind of transition is something that we hope to see with everybody, really.
I get a lot of letters and comments and visits from family members about, thank you for giving our son back, or my husband back, or those type of things. I mean, that's a lot. It's not just this little bit of time, but it's like setting them up for greater success in the future, continued contribution, healthy members of society.
Judge Brubaker, when you meet with the it's the folks over at the state. Is there an amount you're targeting, or is it?
They want to know more, so
More
that
about
came
the
about,
program.
that came about because I spoke to 150 state Commonwealth attorneys and a conference that they invited me to, and after that, a bunch of people came up to talk to me, and one of them was on this command panel and said, we really like, have you met with the government people yet? And I said, no, but I'd love to. And they said, we'd really like to have you there, can you come explain the program? Then I happened to be on another panel with the secretary, and I said to her, how do we get some of that $55 million? She said, here's my card, let's talk, and then we set up this thing where I'm gonna go present to them, so, I'll tell them where we are and see what they have to say.
Would it help to get help from our state reps, our state senators? You know, I know this is federal money, but the state will decide how to
Yeah, the
allocate
state
it.
decides, maybe you guys have those connections, it can't hurt, right? I don't know, you know the politics, right?
Well, Representative Delosier has always been, stayed close to treatment court. She's been here a number of times. Hopefully she'll be a speaker at one of our upcoming graduations after the election. But, she's somebody who's tuned in, and I think that, I'm sure others, but that's a good point, very good point.
Well, hopefully again, I've been checking with our coroner, and of course, every time we also save costs on, the autopsies there, but it's the lives saved, and so, you can't really put a price on that. But I think we're showing, a different trend than the rest of the state. And, and like I said, you just right across the river in the city of Harrisburg, it's awful. So, hopefully, I think this has a lot to do with the opioid intervention court, but it's also all the other things that we've been doing too. And I know we're about ready to, I've been pushing Jack on this about the warm handoff program, just for today, which hopefully is going to get underway here within the next month, which is, I think, important too. So all these things, I think, and it's great to know it's working. One life is one too many, but I think that it's pretty clear that we're going in the right direction. So,
I remember the conversation we had at the prison board in February. And, we weren't quite at that max number. Somebody said, it might have been me, might have been others, that, let's wait just a little longer, because we put this program in effect. We've done a big marketing campaign on the opiates. I just have a feeling these numbers are going to start coming down. And they are. I think part of it is certainly attributable to the OIC. But there's another piece too that I think is attributable to other things, and I'm not quite sure what all those other things are, other than the statewide and national interest in this, all the commercials about, I've also read physicians are changing the way they prescribe these medications. I think that's a piece of it too. But I think the OIC deserves a lot of credit as well. And I hope the state sees that. And I hope other counties see that.
I think that the hesitation with other counties, and I'm hoping that the conference can try to convince them, but it's a big ask for a judge and to do this every day. So I think that's a little bit of hesitation when you tell them it's every day, they say what? and this team that every day, the whole team is assembling, but when you're showing such significant results, I'm hopeful that, and maybe now in Montgomery, if they have similar results, maybe show that there's a trend there.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful that we were able to isolate the overdose deaths who were criminal justice involved, because we can then show that in that population, the only population we have any real control or effect over, we were able to do something about it. And other people should probably start looking at it that way as well.
Yeah. Well, we should share, what success we're having with others, and I think that we should. I'm going to see what we can do to get in touch with the County Commissioners Association too. I think maybe, Judge, you'd like to address that group at some point, or they have breakout sessions.
I don't ever say no. Unless
Okay.
you talk about it, I always say yes.
Rebecca would be good too. But if it's working and so far it looks like it is, then it's a good story to tell and share. So hopefully get this thing going the other direction, throughout our state, and not just here, but.
Does anybody else have any comments, anything you want to say, ask?
Maybe we'll get Judge Maslin too.
She talks a lot faster.
I do, a lot, sorry.
They can listen fast. She's much better. Thank you.
Is there anything else from anyone? Okay, Jim, you good?
I'm good.
Steve, any questions?
No, I just want to thank everyone for your work, but also too, Rebecca, for your working with me on some of these numbers and metrics. I mean, there's obviously, as Commissioner Hertzler indicated, and as everyone knows, that the primary goal is to save lives. You can't quantify that. You're obviously making an effort there. But there certainly is also, though, some evidence, if not clear evidence, that there's some financial gain as well in managing our prison population. Just two things on the support. One would be the RAISE projects. I don't know whether the PCCD folks are there, but AOPC, I think our request is somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 plus. But to even us out. But I applaud the efforts, and this is up and running, and I support it.
Do we have more to discuss, so we'll let
Thank
you
you
do that.
for your time.
Thank you.
You're not staying?
I'm gonna watch it online. Sounds like fun.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the FAC Finance Department.
We have it up too.
How come Ron's sitting in the back?
Which one is it? This is the other side. He doesn't do budget anymore.
That means he can play the ball.
That is true. And he does.
Okay.
So, we'll try to make it quick.
Sorry.
But it is 52 pages, just pointing that out.
I actually read through it.
I did too.
Good, then we're done.
There we go.
Any questions?
So I'll try to skip through the things that are redundant so that we can save a little bit of time. So basically, the presentation is very similar to our normal presentations. The major difference is the election machines. I know we have some decisions coming back up on whether they're in or they're out, and this does have the potential to materially impact the county. So for presentation purposes, we do have it in. We do not have anything in or out of the budget yet, and we're coming back around. We have some pros and cons and some other things that we'll be bringing forward to you. I think we're back in next week to talk about contingencies and some different things. And so we'll also update our actual projections based on whatever decisions are made regarding the election machines, and if we have more information, that takes us down. Then I always have to remind everybody that when you see the projections in the presentation, it is about the midpoint of a range of our expectations, that it is not an exact dollar amount, and that what actually does occur will be up or down from that. Hopefully we're in better shape, but occasionally it does happen the other way. So some of the county highlights, the county's real estate, we've not made any changes to the real estate tax since 2015. We began preparation for the 7th quarter. Public safety's in the process of planning for the P25 project. The county's implementing Cronus. The nursing home is preparing for managed care and they're changing regulations. And in the criminal justice system, we fully implemented the Tom's Court and the opioid court in 2018. Some additional pressure points that are coming is our medical premium rates are going to increase 9.5% or $1.1 million countywide in 2019. But it's important to note, we put the trend line up there intentionally to show you that while it is increasing, we did have 2 years that had a big decrease. So we're still kind of on the same normal trend line that we were before.
Dana, where did 9.5% come from? I thought when the folks were in here from USI, our rates were stable.
They were stable, but we're having a hard year this year. And we did raise rates at the end, next pay to the 2019 rates because we don't have a fund balance to kind of help for the bad years versus the good years. So until we get some of that funding base built up, we're at a little bit more risk, and so this 9.5 is hopefully enough. And then we should see it steady out over time, maybe decrease a little bit. But we do need to get a little bit of that fund balance built. With grant, we need to make sure that we maximize our reimbursements.
Yes.
And then on retirement, we did get the estimates in for 2019. I need to say it is an estimate and it will change. And in May we'll know what it actually is, but it is going up about 33% or about $1 million. Note, last year it went down $1 million. So we are staying on keel with where it was in 2017. And once the actuals come in, it could go up or down depending on lots of different variables, but a major variable is where the market value is of our investments as of the year end. So in 2018, this is an update based on our projections from 18 to our current projections. We are estimating that we are going to end the year with 143 days of fund balance. Revenues overall are increasing about $500,000, and that is the major portion of that is the real estate tax revenue, about $100,000. And then in the other revenue, it's a combination of department fee revenue and expense reimbursement. This nursing home transfer in and the redevelopment authority grants are both in and outs on both the revenue and the expenditure side of the equation, and they offset each other. On the, I'm used to doing this myself. Not good at doing two things at once, but it does keep me from flailing my hands. The unassigned fund balance, this is a graphical representation of that, and we are estimating to be at $33 million, which is 143 days of fund balance. And on the fund balance thermometer, we are still pretty squarely in the green section, which is exactly where we want to be. When we compare 2017 to 2018 projections, our overall revenue is increasing about $700,000. On the real estate tax, it is about $650,000 or 1.2%. And other revenue is increasing just a minor amount of $44,000. Expenses are increasing by $3.6 million. And that is related to salaries increasing $1 million and benefits decreasing $400,000. And then you're seeing in 19 we're having a little bit of bounce back. On the operating expenses are increasing $1.6 million. The nursing home IGT payment is increasing $700,000, and that's offset by the revenue on the other side. And prison treatment, the medical management services is increasing about $500,000. Subsidies are increasing about $500,000, and that's a combination of children and youth, domestic relations, and criminal justice and IP programs. Capital's decreasing $1 million, and that the majority of that is related to the voice over IP, and that is also offset in the revenue. So now we're going to move doing the election machines out of order. So we're kind of preempting with what we expect for 19 before we actually show you what we expect for 19. But we think it's very important to have the discussion up front to kind of show you the material impact of whether the machines are in or out, or if we finance them with bonds, you know, what that changes. And then when we do the presentation, we'll have it all in and occasionally give an update on what it would look like if they're out. So currently, the governor is recommending new election machines before the 2020 election, and we are at risk of the current election equipment being decertified. There's currently very limited state and federal funding to help pay for the cost of the machines. And if we do have to purchase the machines and there's no federal or state funding, it will materially impact the county. Regardless of whether we purchase it up front or we borrow the money and pay it over time, ultimately it has the same negative impact on the residents. Because of this large impact, we have dedicated a section of the presentation to show this impact. And a lot of times we have a lot of unknowns out there, and we will leave them out of our projections, or we'll kick them to a back year. But I believe with some of the discussions that have been going on with the state, it is like front and center and could really impact us next year. So it's important to have the discussion. One of the major things that this will impact is the number of days in fund balance. So for presentation purposes, we're going to calculate the number of days of fund balance using election machines in, out. We went back and forth on this a few times. So that $239,000 in the cost of a day expenditures, we're going to use throughout the presentation because it creates a wild variation up and down whether they're in or out. So in order to keep things comparable, we took that variable out. And as an example of how much it changes it, with the election machines out, it's 108 days of fund balance. If we calculated with it in, it would make a 7-day difference. And so instead of saying, well, this changed because of this variable, we just took that variable out of the presentation. So if the election machines were calculating fund balance this way, and we purchased the election machines in the first year, there would be 108 days of fund balance remaining. And if we do not purchase the election machines, it would be 133 days. So there are several potential scenarios for the election machines that we are going to give some scenarios of how it impacts the finances. The state and federal grant monies will cover all or portion of the cost of the election machines. The county pays for the election machines in full in 2019. The county takes out a 7 to 10 year bond to pay for the election machines. The county handles the election machines like a loan from the assigned capital fund balance. It pays it back over time, and the election machines are not decertified. So if the state or federal government does not fund the election machines and pushes the cost to the counties, the cost of the machines will negatively impact us. $6 million is equivalent to 25 days of fund balance. I know it says 32, we updated it, it did not get into the updated presentation.
Dan, before you just going, how did we arrive at 6 million? Now, was that just a guesstimate?
It is a guesstimate. We were using 4, and I believe the last estimate I heard was 5 to 6 or 7 million.
I hadn't heard it was up to 6, but go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it is.
We don't either. But even 4 would still be a material impact.
Yeah. I think statewide, the County Commissioners Association was talking about 125 million. That's statewide, and I think what I heard from Bethany is like Dauphin County was like talking 6 or 7 million. So they have, I guess, more machines than we do. I don't know, but anyway.
Okay. Hopefully it's less.
Whatever. It's a big number.
It is a big number. And $6 million is the equivalent of 11% of our current tax rate. revenue. So, yeah, it materially impacts our financial statement. So, page 20 is kind of a variation of what we do. It has 3 different scenarios lined up. We have if the county has to purchase machines, but they're 100% grant funded, or there's no machines bought, that is the first column, and the fund balance would be about $31.8 million. If we have to pay the full cost of the project all in the first year, it would be about $25.8 million. And a 7-year bond, the fund balance would be $30.9 million. And while there's a large variation in this, with the exception of whether you purchase machines or you do not, whether you purchase them all up front or you purchase them with bond, over time it has the same impact on the county taxpayer. I don't know financial standing, it's just how fast does it affect you. So to kind of show you that, we put several projections on our tree format, kind of changed how it looks a little bit to make it different than the other ones that you'll see behind. But if we purchase the election machines, or if we do not purchase the election machines, or they're 100% grant funded, when we get to the year 2022, our assumptions put us just above the end of the green zone. So at about $24 million. If we purchase the election machines and they're 50% grant funded, it puts us at about $21.2 million, which is in the yellow zone of the fund balance thermometer. If we purchase the election machines, the entire $6 million, we would hit the yellow section in 2021, and we would just barely be above the red section in 2022, and so we would start having cash flow issues. If we purchase with an election machines with a 7-year bond, while it does smooth it out, when you calculate it over the cost of 10 years, you still have the same impact, but we would still be in the yellow at a $20.3 million fund balance. The next page actually takes that and shows it graphically. Let's see if I can get the colors right. The top line, purple or blue, that would be if we don't purchase election equipment and where our fund balance would be, or if they're funded with grant funding. The blue line would be if we purchase 100% from the county general fund all in 1 year, and the orange line would be if we purchase with a 7-year bond. And the thing that we really wanted to point out is when you get to the year 2024, whether you purchase it with bond or you purchase it all up front, you will end up with the same negative impact. And at the end of the day, you pay a little bit more for it, but the time value of money, you know, is it worth it, is it not? But where I think the real interesting part of this lies is in the fund balance thermometer. If we don't purchase election machines with grant funded, over the course of our projections, we stay in the green section. Grant, we get very close to the yellow section, we're still in the green. But if we have to purchase the election machines, we're just above the green in 2019, but in 2022, we are in the yellow and just above the red. Getting ready for cash flow issues. Now I'll kind of go back, circle back around and give projections. For the rest of the presentation, we'll have the election machines in, but you'll see that we occasionally bounce back and give information if there are no election machines because of the material. And once we make a decision on how we're going to handle the election machines in the budget, we'll circle back around and give updated projections or as we have new information. So our preliminary budget is $82 million of revenue and $93 million of expenditures, and the projections are $83 million of revenue and $90.5 million of expenses. I'll do it this way, it's easier for me. The major changes between the budget and our projections is operating expense is less by $2.6 million. The majority of that is the contingency of $1.2 million. Subsidies are increasing about 270,000, and that is due to children and youth subsidy. Capital is decreasing 900,000. We're estimating about 750,000 being paid out of restricted funds, and that would be things like farmland, prison canteen, automation. And the additional impact, 772,000, the majority of that is the fund balance that we're actually moving to assignments. And that's the 911, the indirect costs, and we move $100,000 to capital. On the revenue side, the difference is about $1.2 million, and that's in the department fee revenue and court costs of $940,000. And it's spread all over multiple department fees, multiple departments, a little bit here and a little bit there. Adds up. This is showing the difference between our projected 2018 to our projected 2019. The total general fund revenue is increasing $1,628,000. The majority of that is related to the real estate tax increasing $972,000 or 1.8%, and other revenue increasing $656,000. The majority of that is related to the state pass-through grants for the redevelopment authority. Oh, and the $25 million, forgot that part, it's 108 days of fund balance. I think fund balance over the other slides. On the expense side of the equation, we are expecting the salaries to increase $1.3 million. That's about 5%, and that's due to merit-based compensation, union contracts, new positions, and some other things in there. Benefits, we're expecting to increase about $1.3 million or 12.3%. The majority of that is related to the medical and the retirement. Operating expenses increasing $1.2 million or 5%, and that's spread throughout multiple lines and areas. And the subsidy is increasing $1.7 million, which is emergency telephone is increasing 1.2, and that's the majority is the 3 Square Hollow, the P25, and some other projects. Capital is increasing 1.4, and that is mainly due to the 7th court project. Transfers of debt are decreasing 1.6, and that is the bond refinancing. So overall, we have the fund balance decreasing 7.2%, which is a reduction of days of 24%. The important thing to note here is even if the election machines aren't in, it's a decrease of $1.2 million. So we still have some work cut out for us on things that we need to do to right that ship. The next slide is just kind of a graphical representation of where our expenditures lie. Over 50% of our expenditures are salary and benefits. Subsidy, capital, debt transfer makes up about 18%, and the remainder is the operating expense. Of our operating expense, a majority of that is for the most part, fixed costs. In the short run, some of them can be changed over time, but for the most part, they're fixed. There's about 16% of our operating expense that is, which you could consider variable, like office supplies, service supplies, and that's about $4.5 million. Then for the merit-based compensation formula, the June CPI was 2.9%. The fund balance over 100 days was nearly $10 million or 2.52%. So the anchor for 2018 to be paid in 2019 is 5.42%. And then the 2019 100 days of fund balance based on this presentation is $23,998,000. And we will update that based on what the final budget actually states. This is the same chart that we showed in the previous presentation. It just shows the tax changes since 2008. We haven't had a change since 2014. And then this is the same growth in taxable assessed value of building permits. Your time savings is 80.
We'll read into the projections, some of the major assumptions in the projections, the 911 uniform funding. 911 needs subsidy for neither capital projects that are not related to the radio project. Beginning in 2020, the radio project will be funded by bond proceeds. And we've listed some of the debt service changes over 5 years. Our current projections do not include estimates for timing and financings of all the projects on the next slide, but they do have they will have an impact on future years in projections. And our projections always assume aggressive management of our cost drivers. Some of the major pressure points: election machines, voice over IP, farmland, the 7th Court renovations, personnel, radio projects, $10 million bonds for the radio project and infrastructure. We're a growing county, that's always a pressure point. State budget, the nursing home, and any additional capital projects. This next slide is just our normal projections that we show you. In 2018, we're $33 million projected fund balance. Out in 2022, it's 18.2. In 2019, we've got the election machines projected, along with the 7th courts, just a little bit for personnel, and the rest in 2020 through 2022. And some IMTO projects out in the out years. Some of the assumptions that are in the projections: salaries for 2019, it's projected with a 5.4% increase. There's a 3% increase in 2020 through 2022. That's all based on looking at union contracts, merit-based compensation, overtime. The benefits, there's a 12.4% in there for 2019, and then 5.12% average yearly increase for the out years. Now, medical is higher in 2019 at 9.5%. It's dropped to 7% for 2020 through 2022. Retirement is projected at 33.8 in 19, dropped it, hoping that it'll even out at 1% for 2020 through 2022. And operating expenses 5% in 19 and 1.3% average yearly increase. And we are aggressive again with our cost drivers. And subsidy in the projections is about a 3% average yearly increase, with the exception of 911. And capital projects, it's based on history, no capital projects. The 911 radio project assumptions in the projections, we have a $10 million bond in 2020 and another $10 million bond in 2022. And the estimated bond principal and interest is about $800,000 each. So that's kind of the way the projections are built, so you can see some of the assumptions here.
So why does it say the projections for 2019 salaries are 5.4%? Earlier they said that it was 4.47. Page 29 versus
I think some of it is
34.
because the 5.4% is the average increase between the different categories of like union, non-union. And the salary increase on the other page has turnover in it and, shift differential and some of the other items that don't change as much.
It gives you, with the assumptions up there, so it gives you an idea of what's in that projection spreadsheet. So you can kind of see the thought process of what we're using when we're projecting out. So there's a lot of different lines in this spreadsheet, because the full-time salaries will have a different percentage than maybe what my union salaries have, because I'm looking at union salaries. And then I've got overtime to look at, and overtime.
And the other line is everything that falls into our salary lines within Lawson, that 5.4% is a subsection of that.
Okay.
So just kind of to help you understand how the projections are built.
Having your name on page 38, what is the projection so far in the presentation?
$500,000. So this next slide is showing you the unassigned fund balance out through 2022. As you can see, in 2022, at $18.2 million, we're at 76 days, and 70 days we're to talk to red zone. So we're 6 days away from meeting our minimum cash flow needs. This next chart is just a graphical representation of the projections. The red bars are the revenue, blue bars are expense. And you can see when you're looking at the red bars and the blue bars, the expenses in the out years are higher than what our revenues are. So our fund balance will be slowly lowering with the gaps between the revenue and expenses here. Now the green line on the chart is our current projections. Yellow lines where the projections were in April, and the black lines where the projections were when we did them a year ago. On the next slide, we're showing the projections, no change. So you can see where we are. The blue numbers underneath are showing you what the difference is, what the gap is between revenue and expenses. We're also showing you the break-even line. And the break-even takes 6.5% in 2019 to get our fund balance back up in 2022 to about $13.5 million. And that's because of the election machines being a one-time expense in 2019. On the next slide, we're showing you some of the projections again with the election machines in and out. The grant funded, no election machines is the first line, so you can kind of see where fund balance would be if we did not have them in there. Per projections with the election machines in there in 2019 is the bill projection, and the last one showing it with the 7-year bond. And in 2019, you can see on the very first row, we are starting to grow fund balance each year because our expenses are higher than our revenues. So even with the election machines out, it's starting to get down. On the next slide is our fund balance projections. This is kind of shown in the positive direction because our projections are a midpoint of a range, so we could be a little better, we could be a little worse depending on how the numbers fall, but we always do it in the midpoint. So the first row is showing you projections the way they are. The next scenario is just showing you some different ones, a 4% in 2021, a 3% in 2022, just to show you what it would kind of take and a change to bring our fund balance back up. Third one kind of evens it out a little bit with the 2% each year. I also did, on the third row, 2% in 2019. So you can see what kind of impact just a 2% change in revenues or expenses would have out in 2022. And the last one does a 3%. This kind of gives you an idea. A 1% change is about $500,000, 2%, just a little over $1 million. You can see what, impact the change has on our fund balance, and that's in a positive direction. So the next slide is kind of drawing it in the opposite direction. We had a negative change, and what kind of impact that would have on our fund balance and how fast it takes us into the red zone on our thermometer. First one again is just current assumptions, but in this next section I did, -1%, -2%, 3%. So you can kind of see what kind of impact a one-time change, 1%, $500,000 does each year, and how fast it does push us on the thermometer. The last two do 1% in 19 and 2% in 19, so you can see what kind of impact it does have. In both slides, the positive and the negatives are both within our projection range. This next slide is just showing graphically what a $1 million positive change would do to fund balance. With the bars that are more on the solid side, there are current projections. The ones with the stripes are with the $1 million positive change in there, what our fund balance would look like. And then the next slide does it in the opposite direction. We would have a $1 million negative change, what that would do to our fund balance. You can see it a little more graphically. I think it's a little times easier to see. And then our next slide is the comparative tax rate. Cumberland County is still the lowest with the 2017 tax per capita at $280. We're the lowest with the 2017 average tax per household for median household income at 0.6%. We're the lowest average tax per household. We're the third highest for the median household income. And that's all based on the third class counties. So then when you compare us to our surrounding counties, Cumberland County is still the lowest on the property tax per capita, still the lowest on the average tax per household per median income, and still the lowest on average tax per household. But we are number one with the highest median household income. Any questions on the presentation?
On slide 42, page 42. If I look at the numbers underneath there for the years 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and where it says the projections were made, essentially what you did there is actually, that is what the fund balance was, period, right? That doesn't, you're not showing, because it
They're
ends
the
up.
actuals up to the
Yeah, so it's the actuals as opposed to, what the projections were. right?
Yeah, the slides actuals and projections.
Right. So that-
17,
Yeah,
13 to 17 is actuals, 18 forward is projection.
okay. So, according to this is the largest fund balance we've had in the past number of years, right?
Yes.
And can you just give me an idea as to how we ended up with a projection in August of 2017 of 29 million.1 versus the projection in August of 18 of $33.1 million.
Can you say that again? Or go back to?
It's the year,
If
December, April.
we had a projection a year, or well, in August of last year, that we would end up 2018 with a fund balance of $29.1 million.
I think part of it is in August, August, we had the election.
Some might be just retirement and health insurance. Do my best.
Yes. When I look at the numbers, the salaries are higher, the benefits are higher. I was projecting 18 in August of last year. I had capital higher probably because of knowing the seventh quarter was coming, not knowing the timing of when everything was hit. More than likely, I had a little bit extra money in there in the projection, which then pulled the number down.
Right.
That didn't move as fast as what I thought. Even back in April, I was thinking it would move a little faster than what it did.
Okay.
So I was looking.
So it has to do primarily with the timing of expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
Timing, and some of our expenses did decrease. Retirement, health insurance.
Yeah. That was the other question I had was, what, I mean, because we know that the market's been pretty good, why is our work going up $1 million? What's that all about? We didn't make any changes, I don't think, in investment policy. Yeah, but I'd like to explore that a little bit more. I don't quite understand why, after we had the drop of about $1 million in work, it's going up another $1 million.
What I'm not sure is how much of that $1 million was really intended just to be a writing of the analysis, right? Because one of the things that changed was the assumption surrounding the employees portion that's paid in. And I knew that was a big change, and I think that might not have been amortized over time like the other major changes are. So that's what I'm not sure of. And it is an estimate, so we don't know what it's actually going to be until May. And quite frankly, the estimate last year was $1 million more than what came in. So that could happen again. It has happened in reverse, but I'm expecting it to not exceed that.
All right, so that's not necessarily written in stone either.
It's not. We won't know until May.
All right. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
No, I don't either. Like I said, I actually read it before today. Unless there are any questions.
I'll look it over.
Okay.
Email you anything I have, but
Okay.
so far, this is
The big swing thing, Gary, the combination, appropriation for the shows things.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, the big thing to get out of this is it equates to an 11% tax increase just for the voting machines.
Well,
That's
that
what
would
it
be,
equates to, right?
that would be one time, so even if you would fund it and want to do a tax increase, we still wouldn't recommend an 11% because
No, I know, but it equates to
Yeah.
11% of the tax.
11%.
So like in the past,
Or real estate revenue.
we can put together some information on the election machines for you guys to look over. But we can go over this. It's just the pros and cons and stuff in the back. So. And we are slated to be back next week to discuss the contingencies, where we are with the capital for 2018, and any more questions with the budget. I hate to say, we've been kind of running behind schedule. We'll try try to get you a draft of the different details that are going into the budget also. The major decision point in this budget really is the election machines, so.
Well, we have some presentations that are coming before us too with respect to funding requests. So, before the ink dries on this thing, I think they should be considered. I think we also had, I'm trying to think, well, we heard a presentation from the Housing Redevelopment Authority on the downtown program, which we need to make a final determination on, I think. And then I think we're expecting to hear from Kate as well, and some of them. So those are some of the things that need to be tied together.
And from the presentation.
Yes, yes.
And the library, with their third year of the grant, they should have their recommendations in for goals also.
Is the OIC situation in here? And if so, how did you?
The OIC runs on a fiscal year in our financials, so there is a half-year impact of that. And so they were expecting to run out of funding, I don't remember off the top of my head. There's a partial year of funding it fully in the fiscal budget. So that will be running through the calendar, I think it's like 150,000,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
that's a question I forgot to ask during the first part of the finance. We have, I'll call it leftover grant money, but it's not really leftover because it's based on the fiscal year.
Yeah, for the OIC, and then they're getting permission to spend it full, yes.
Okay.
That, I think they were expected to run out of that soon, November.
Right, I believe they initially thought the grants would be used up on or around the end of June. And I think previously they reported back that it was October, November, that the grants would run out. But is OIC in between the fiscal and this calendar year budget projections, is OIC funded
It would
in
be,
the projections?
it would be funded on the fiscal basis in our projections. So we take the fiscal subsidy and put it in, let's make the assumption that it's the calendar. Questions?
Gary, you really cumulatively.
I've been looking at the
Okay.
terms.
And if you want, we can go over it one-on-one if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I may have one or two things, but I need time to go through it. My apologies for being late. I was at an event on behalf of the commission at the Side College.
Duty calls.
We tried really hard to get through it fast. I was talking as fast as I possibly could. Because it was a long one. I was worried about it being an hour, hour and a half.
There's nothing else. You folks are done. Is there anything else the finance board needs to discuss? Any